We got a good fight on here, folks. All right. What is going on? Florida State family, Simulation 863 Tribe. It's been a minute. Since we've been here. We got the fight on in the background. Or a fight. The fight hasn't started yet. You know, Tank Davis fights tonight, so we're gonna check that out. Hope everybody. I know it's been a minute. Hope everybody's doing all right. Haven't gone live in a few weeks, and I feel like it's time to start back up. You got the combine going on, so you got a couple Florida State players, a few Florida State players right now in the combine. Farmer, AZ. AZ chose not to run the 40, which was interesting. I don't know. I'm pretty sure he'll run that at the pro day. I would have been very interested. Measurable wise, you know, AZ is like in the top percentile of corners. I think that alone may be why he decided not to run. And of course, we know the pro day times kind of get skewed in the favor of the player, so maybe he just more confident running at the pro day. So AZ, the Farmer did everything. I think Fitzgerald's at the combine. Are there any other players? I'm not sure of any other players at the combine. But get in here, guys. Hit that like button. Again, we got the fight on in the background right now. Is J. Rock Williams versus who is this? Telez? I don't know. But it's actually a pretty good fight so far. I gotta say, the reason for this particular video, eventually, man, we'll get into this new stuff, man. We'll get into spring ball. Obviously, we know there won't be a scrimmage this year, but we'll still get it. Well, there won't be a spring game. I'm sure there will be scrimmages, but there won't be a spring game. But we'll get into like all the new things. But before I do all of that, I got to close out. We have to close out 2024. I don't feel like I closed that out. I don't feel like we did a proper diagnosis of 2-10 season. A 2-10 season that hit us out of nowhere. A 2-10 season that smacked us, blindsided us. One of the most, out of all the years that I've been a Florida State football fan, never felt more disgusted than I did this year. And it deserves a proper review. Right? It deserves, like, what happened? How did that happen? How did after 13-0 in the playoff snub, and me personally thinking, okay, this team is gonna come out, this team, this program, this staff, they're gonna come out, they're gonna be motivated to prove something, and instead, though this year had no bearing on 2023, just the optics of it, you did nothing but prove the doubters, I guess, right? Again, I think intelligent people understand that this year had no bearings on last year, but here we are. or there we were, so to say, because we've moved on. But before we completely close the book, write the final chapter of it, and close the book and move on to 2025 and beyond, I gotta kind of go back and see where this all started. Whoops, dropped my pen. I want to talk about where it all started. Why do I think 2-10 happened? From a player perspective, from a coaching perspective, just everything that encompassed it. And then after that, what's next? And when I say what's next, I'm not necessarily even talking, I'm talking slightly about this upcoming year, but I'm more so talking about is there any faith? I'm going to talk about my personal opinion and how I feel going forward personally about this program as under Mike Norvell, because ultimately that's who it falls under, right? It falls under the head coach, and until he's no longer the head coach or whatever, that's how we have to gauge it. So with all of that said, again, hit the like button, share the video. We are live here on a Saturday night. It's been a minute. Like button, subscribe, share, get in that comment section. Shout outs to the comments, everybody that tuned in. We're gonna get it cracking here very shortly. I'm sort of kind of giving it time for maybe more people to trickle through. I've became so inconsistent with these lives. I don't even think people realize when I be going live half of the time. So that's understandable. So we don't have a huge audience in here right now, but hopefully we get some more people in here. We get some more people in here. I also want to give a disclaimer before I get into this. This is not a Mike Norvell, quick disclaimer, right? This is not a Norvell hating or bashing live stream or anything of that nature. It's just going to be a very critical review of everything that has happened up until this point. And then where do I think it goes from here? That's really all I'm doing. And once I say my piece and give people maybe a chance in the comment section to say their piece, we can move on and we can talk about 2025 and what we think this team may be next year and going forward. But it's not going to be probably not going to be a bunch of sunshine. I mean, obviously, after 2-10, I don't know if anybody is expecting to hear a bunch of sunshine and rainbows, right? So it's going to be very critical. And ultimately, again, another disclaimer, this is just opinions of mine. There's no insight here, per se, on the things that I'm going to talk about. Just what I saw as a fan from the outside and how I think it played out internally on this football team. So, again, like button, subscribe, share. You are on the most interactive platform for the Florida State football fan. I believe that we're going to get back in the swing of things. So, let's get ready. All right. I think I've waited as long as I want to wait. People will come and go as they please. That's okay. I'll shout out the few people left in the chat right now, and then I'm just going to get into where it all started and how I think it played out. Where do I think it all started anyway? So we got Montre in the building. Montre says, what happened to the FSU 2024 team? Went to the portal to connect, right relationships, not production, to help the team. It was held hostage by some players. I got FSU Tony in the building. Bastino. Priscilla Chestnut. Are you all trusting the beat on the practice reports this year? I mean, they're the ones that see it, right? Take that by, I guess, however you want to take that one. I would say trust, no, but you got to take whatever they give you and just, I would say take the information given with all kinds of, with just a bunch of salt, not even a grain of salt. Just take it as a 50-50 possibility. Do they understand what they're looking at? Then again, I mean, and we're going to talk about it a little bit, but just to continue to answer this question, like, given what the offensive line ended up being, do you think the beat was actually wrong? And listen, I'm not here trying to say that FSU's beat writers don't have their issues. Most of us have been vastly critical. But given what the O-line ended up being, those preseason reports of this defensive line looks X, Y, and Z, they were probably as accurate as they were going to be, given what the offensive line was. It wasn't until they got against other scholarship football players then you saw what it really was. But given what you saw on the field from our own O-line, yeah, I'm pretty sure the defensive line looked every bit as good as they claimed it was supposed to be. Because the O-line couldn't block a sneeze. They couldn't, couldn't hold running water. So ultimately, I think that's kind of just how that played out. Brandon says 2-10 just doesn't happen. 2-10 says a lot about Mike and the direction of the program. At this point, we should be looking at the playoffs, but instead we're hoping he can win 10 games. That comment right there is going to contribute a lot to the conversation of what's next. No buzz for FSU football. Can you blame them? Why would there be? I'll be honest with you guys. In a lot of ways, on how the season went, I've taken this off season and I've really just kind of detoxed from everything Florida State. Not even going to lie to you. Haven't been following recruiting much. Quite frankly, don't care who commits in February, January, March, April. Like, I could care less. Not paying much attention to just a lot of it. To be honest with you. 2-10 tends to have that effect. Spencer Taylor in the building. Clark J. Kent says with UCF having a lot of players at the combine, I think Gus will get them going in the right direction. Well, let's hope so. At least from an offensive standpoint, it remains to be seen. But that is what's next. Let's talk about what happened. So appreciate all y'all in the comment section for giving your input. Hit that like button and again, share the video. What happened? So let's start. In my opinion, right? Let's get to where I think it started. Where did this all stem from? Like, how did 2-10 happen? Well, where did it start? And so there's questions. Did it start after the demolition job that Georgia did on you in the bowl game? Did it start directly was it a result of the snub? Did Mike Norvell lose the team because of the snub? My answer to both of those questions would be no. I don't think that's where it started. I think it started that in between time. I think it started after the snub, before the Georgia game. And I'm going to say a key name here, and this might be controversial to some, but I want you to hear me out as I explain where I think this all started. And I have a name that I'm going to drop of where I think it started. Does anybody think, or can anybody guess where I'm going with this just before I drop it? I'm just curious. Anybody have a guess where I might be possibly leaning towards where I think this whole thing started? Again, didn't start. What's up? No, sir, not me. It didn't start because of the snub, in my opinion, and it didn't start after the Georgia loss. It started in that month of December, or it started in that leading up to the Georgia game, in that time frame where you were preparing for Georgia, right? That's where it started. Montre says Pat Payton. Solid guess, but no. Again, this name is going to maybe shock you, but again, I want you to hear me out. The name that I want to see, Travis injury, no. I don't think it was a result of Travis injury was a big impact on the actual football team, but no. Travis' injury was not why 2024 happened. It was why 2023, other than the committee just being full of shit, Travis' injury is why 2023 ended the way it ended. Brandon, there we go. Smart man. Tate Rodemaker. Hear me out. People are like, Tate Rodemaker. Tate Rodemaker wasn't X, Y, and Z. I'm not saying he was great. I'm not saying Tate Rodemaker was going to be great. I'm not saying Tate Rodemaker, he could have went into 2024 as Florida State's quarterback and been just as bad, if not worse, than every quarterback we saw last year. Hear me out here. I'm going to tell you why Tate Rodemaker was the start. What's going on, Vontae? Of 2024. Because Tate Rodemaker was a player. And a lot of this is going to circle around the head coach, but it is what it is. The truth shall set you free, and that's what we do. We speak the truth. Tate Rodemaker was a player that Mike Norvell brought in from day one. Recruited him out of high school. Tate Rodemaker was a guy that you kept him on the feet. You kept him on this team for what? 4 years? You had invested so much in the Tate Rodemaker. Where I think it all went wrong was the moment after the Florida win. What happened? FSU was in the transfer portal immediately, and DJU was the first name that popped. And the only reason why DJU didn't really commit earlier than he would have is because FSU also got into the Cam Ward race, right? And we all know that they kept DJU on the back burner as they pursued Cam Ward, and as that kind of played out longer than I think Florida State wanted, they eventually said, we're good on Cam Ward. We think we got somebody just as good as DJU. I'm not even going to get into that conversation, particularly right now. Back to Tate Rodemaker. You can't keep somebody on. If you're a football player on that team, to see Tate Rodemaker not even get the opportunity to be the guy after giving you 4 years of, and I don't know Tate Rodemaker's practice habits. I don't know the type of effort or work he put in. But you got to look at it from a player standpoint. You got to look at it from the optics of it. They brushed Tate Rodemaker to the side. How do you think some of those other players, and this is all going to lead into one big thing with the Tate Rodemaker and the transfer portal, it's really all one thing. Because as you recruit, and I am one of the biggest proponents of the transfer portal. I think when utilized correctly, it can do a great thing for your football team. But if you're constantly telling the guys that you recruit you're not good enough, and then bringing in these guys that coming from other programs for whatever reason that they're leaving their programs, it does start to send a message, and it starts to send a stinging message of commitment, work ethic. I think a lot of that stuff you saw play out in 2024. Again, I'm not saying Tate Rodemaker would have been a great quarterback for you, but what I will say is I think the team would have rallied behind him. I think they would have had some belief in him, if for nothing else, to see a guy who stuck, to see a guy who just sat and waited his turn, get the opportunity. That would have inspired the guys around him. Just my opinion. You never know how it plays out. If ifs were fifths, we'd all could be drunk. But the point is, you brushed him to the side. And people wanted to talk about the leadership aspect and how 2024 team lacks so much leadership. Well, why do you think that is? Hard to lead a team of guys that you don't probably have a lot of camaraderie, chemistry with, and all of that. When you brush the Tate Rodemaker to the side, and it's not just brushing him to the side. Look at the manner in which Tate Rodemaker hit the portal. Look at the manner in which that played out. Don't even just take my word of it. Look at the manner in which Tate Rodemaker left the football team. That tells you a lot about how that played out, the manner in which he left. He just didn't just hit the portal. He hit the portal like, what was it, like the day before the game or something like that. And we didn't know Tate Rodemaker was not playing in the Georgia game until like it was very short notice when Tate left. A lot of that has to do with how 2020 just planted the seeds for the 2024 team to be ultimately what it ended up being. Let me get to the comment section before I continue. David, what's going on? He says the snub destroyed Norvell to his core as a coach. He was convinced FSU was in after winning the championship, the ACC championship. I see where you're going with this, and I agree already. Sad, but that's been our MO every season. Push the homegrown talent to the side for a transfer. The biggest flag was the DJU recruitment. Let's talk about the DJU recruitment here for a second, Lewis. I don't necessarily disagree with you because I said it when I found out we were even in the running for this guy. And then if you look how it played out, the fact that FSU was able to put DJU to the side and go after Cam Ward, and then there was not another team in the country pursuing DJU. There was not another team. In a lot of ways, and it has no correlation, but it does in some ways say how they go about evaluating this quarterback market. TC Castellanos and the DJU recruitment are almost mirror images of one another. They zero in on a guy, and it's almost like they didn't vet any other options. If it wasn't for Cam Ward, Cam Ward was the guy that you had to pursue if you were this much of a serious program. You had to then especially if the player had interest, you had to pursue Cam Ward, right? But they were in on DJU from the moment the portal opened. And I think all that stuff, if I was Tate Rodemaker, regardless of what you think of me as a football player, if I was Tate Rodemaker, I would have felt some type of way. And obviously he did. And that's why he ended up, bouncing the way he bounced. And to Tate's defense, to some degree, we had seen Tate Rodemaker in this system have success, win games, put up solid numbers. If you remember at the end of last year, I was really big on Tate Rodemaker going into this season as the quarterback. Not because I believe Tate Rodemaker was some great prospect or anything of that nature. But it was, you're building, you got Luke Cormahope, you got Brock Glenn, like, you don't need to bring, you've got this guy who was what, a redshirt junior, redshirt senior, whatever Tate Rodemaker was going to come in as. Like, what was the point of keeping him in the program for 4 or 5 years just to go, let's go with DJU. Tate Rodemaker and DJU's entire Florida short FSU tenure. Tate Rodemaker had better games. That Louisville game where Tate Rodemaker, when Jordan Travis gets injured, DJU could never even replicate that type of a performance. Was Tate coming off an injury after the Florida game? You remember concussion protocol. That was Tate had a concussion. Also remember, what was it? 2 or 3 weeks before the Georgia game, however long that was before we got Georgia versus Florida State. He probably still would have ended up playing in that game. But he did have a concussion in the Florida game, or a supposed concussion, even though I think he ended up finishing the Florida game. But yeah. Facts. They would have rolled for Tate. That team barely knew DJ, and DJ probably wasn't even no-blooded. He was there to get drafted. He was there to try to improve some draft stock for sure. For sure. Yeah, he dipped right before they headed to Miami. That's my point. And again, this is to me where 2024 started. was a Tate Rodemaker fiasco. And then we've talked about our beat. Somebody mentioned our beat earlier. I think it was FSU Tony. Do you remember the reports that came out after Tate Rodemaker decided? Our beat always tends to, once a guy wants to do X, Y, and Z, here comes the bash piece. Here comes, oh, Tate wasn't doing X, Y, and Z, and da 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 da. Remember that? Because I remember all the negative press, all the negative stuff that came out about Tate Rodemaker after the fact. So Tate Rodemaker leads me into the transfer portal talk as a whole. Again, I vouch for the portal. What's going on, Peter? Because I think the portal can work, has shown to work. Here's the problem with the way they attacked it last year. And I agree, there was just the evals, man. The evals were really bad last year. But not even so much just the evals. Like, we'll get into the evaluations of the portal. How about the fact that the same way I can talk about Tate Rodemaker, how many other at some, I mean, I'm trying to get my words right, but let me bring it to this offseason and where I think FSU's doing, where I think FSU actually did a smart thing this offseason. The secondary. There were a lot of talks about FSU going out because, I mean, you're losing AZ, you're losing Cypress, right? Those are two veteran corners that played a lot of snaps for you over the last couple years. FSU's corners, FSU's DBs probably as a whole is going to be fairly young next year. A lot of talent, but very much a lot of unproven guys. But you know what they didn't do? They didn't go to the portal. You know why? Because you have to, at some point, you do have to trust your high school recruiting and trust that a Quindarius Jones, a Charles Lester, a Jamari Howard, a Kai Bates, a Kirkland, even Earl Little, some of these guys that you've brought in, Edwin, Hussey, whoever, at some point, you have to trust that your high school evaluations and the guys that you've recruited and developed at a certain point can actually, you don't always have to go to the portal and push those guys back down the depth chart. Let those guys grow, get starting reps, and prove themselves. Me personally, I am 100% in favor of the way they attacked the portal, specifically in the secondary, because they didn't. They said, you know what? We've recruited that position immensely. We're going to let it ride. So I go back to these other position groups and I go, was Roydell Williams really did we need to take a Roydell? One, we got no production out of him anyway. Ricky Knight, shout out to Montre. I forgot about Ricky Knight. There's another one. But one, we didn't get anything out of Roydell. And two, you had recruited Cam Davis. You wanted to see what you had in Singleton. Keziah Holmes. You still have Toafili on that roster. I'm cool with you bringing in Jalen Lucas because he brings a different bit of a dynamic. Like, what was the purpose of a Roydell? And then what, again, you bring in a guy. What is that sending the message to your young guys that have been on this roster fighting and clawing and trying to get starting reps? What's what message are we sending to that defensive line last year? Where you go out and you want to talk about bad evals. The best guy that they got on the defensive line was the Sonone, or however you pronounce his name. He was the only one who played worth a damn. And granted, I wanted Marvin Jones Jr., but I didn't think I'm at the point where I don't think Marvin Jones Jr. actually loves football. I think Marvin Jones Jr. plays football because of who his dad is. And his name says he should play football. And he is 6'5", 250 or whatever he is. So he's just going to try to play football, right? But at some point, like, the guys that you're recruiting have got to get on the field. And I just think if you look at how they attacked the portal almost at every level last year, all you did was send a message to these other guys. I mean, we've talked about it ad nauseum. I see Vontae bringing it up, but we talked about it ad nauseum. Atkins signed 6. He had a class of 6 O-linemen. 5 of them left the program before Atkins was fired. Only one left is still Jalen Early. We could never see Julian Armella get on the field. You can't convince me that Julian Armella is worse than Terrence Ferguson because I watched it. You can't convince me of it. Move Julian's ass in the guard and give it a shot because I want Terrence Ferguson play terrible football. The portal didn't just kill us because they went with no production, blase. The portal killed us because it killed whatever confidence that some of these other guys that you eventually were going to have to ask, it killed it. I'm convinced of that. The way they attacked the portal killed these younger players. To the point where I think you saw on the field that guys just didn't want to play with effort, man, at certain points. Incredible detailing in the building, man. He's got the 1999 dono. Appreciate you, credible detailing. So welcome back, Polk. It's Orlando on the check. And y'all already know if y'all in Central Florida, my unofficial sponsor here, Credible Detailing. Go get your car vacuum clean. I'm pretty sure he does all of that. Clean. Go and get your rim job. All that good stuff. Get your grill washed. Go get all that from Credible Detailing in Orlando, Florida, Central Florida area. Appreciate you. Take a deep drink. Grady Kelly was a waste. I mean, we let Grady Kelly leave. Excuse me. We let Dennis Briggs transfer to Illinois for a Grady Kelly. You could have just kept Dennis Briggs on the team. You know what I'm saying? Like, why? Why? The portal, and I think, again, and they went back to the portal this year. But this year, I think it's pretty much apparent that they had to go the route that they went in the portal because of what everybody gave you last year. But again, I think it all starts with the message sent in the way they went about the transfer portal. The way they went about it, I think, sent the message. I'm fairly much convinced of that if you just look at it. Panama says, I'm so happy the defense will not give up first down. Well, we don't know that yet, Panama, but hopefully you're correct. But we don't know that yet. Total Philly was criminally underutilized last season. We're going to get to some more of that because, David Hall, you're not wrong. As a matter of fact, we talked about how bad the quarterback situation. Did we ever even try to run Wildcat at all last year? I don't think we did. But that all leads into the lack of trust and then the lack of development from the high school ranks. Again, we're talking about why did 2024 happen? Well, Briggs and Ray. Yeah, I know, but 100%, Peter, 100%. Appreciate you, Mighty Noel. Glad to be back. Yes, you fail to develop any of those guys. Again, like take it for what it's worth. I'm not the biggest guy on PFF. Like the PFF is not the Bible, as some people will utilize it as. It gives a snapshot of some good things. Also, you got to watch tape. But Jalen Early played better than Byers, Ferguson, and yet we couldn't keep him on the field because, for whatever reason, this offensive line coach constantly wants to rotate guys. Instead of playing his best five, he's got to rotate guys. He's got to mismatch. He constantly has to do those things. And this leads in, let me read a couple more comments, and then I'm going to lead into the next point of why 2024 happened. The wide receiver position of Norvell has not been good. Whether it was Dogans or Norvell is to be determined. It's been a disaster. We're incredibly lucky we got Coleman in 23. As a KCS, I guess we've had some bright spots there. Yes, Keon, but don't sleep on Johnny. Like, Johnny did his thing. I mean, don't sleep on Pokey. I think No, Pokey's last season at FSU, he was a really, really solid wide receiver for you. But it goes to the development piece that I'm talking about. Again, I think Malik Benson is actually going to go to Oregon and shut some people up. I watched Malik Benson consistently last year. I know he had drops, but the way I explained it is, hell, most of his targets weren't on the money. Eventually, when you did get a catchable ball and you drop it, that drop is magnified, right? But I consistently watched Malik Benson get behind defenses last year. We just couldn't get him the ball. And even so, you bring in a Malik Benson, okay, cool. I mean, what's going on? Why can't I keep you? This is the part. And man, you bring in that wide receiver position because it just brings in 100 more questions. Because you look at the wide receiver position and you go, why were they so convinced that Kentron Portier and Darian Williamson were such good football players, but never gave Julian Armella a shot, never gave Sam Singleton more carries, never, like, for some reason you wanted to stick with some guys, but you never gave some of these other guys opportunities. And the development part of it is it just going to boil down, like, I know you ended up getting Squirrel and you end up getting Dante and you're hoping good things, but guys like Hakeem Williams are going to have to really step it up, right? Some of these other guys that you've recruited, speaking of wide receivers, your boy BJ Gibson's actually playing very good for the baseball team right now. So is he a wide receiver or a baseball player? Well, I don't know right now. He might have a decision to make because he's actually playing very good baseball right now for the number 3 baseball team in the country right now. Shout out to Link. But FSU, you have recruited, like, okay, Mike Norvell hasn't been an elite recruiter, but he has recruited solid players. And yet, can we think of a single Mike Norvell recruit that you go, yeah, they really polished him up into, like, only guy I can think of is Joshua Farmer off the top of my head. Maybe AZ. So those two. 2 out of how many? 2 out of how many classes have Mike Norvell had? William thinks TC will be the reason why we beat Miami and Alabama. Well, I hope so. I hope so. Shout out to my man Jeff. He says, I missed much. Go Knowles. Shout out to Jeff.
My name is Jeff.
I think Cam's playing. I know BJ's playing baseball. I don't know so much about Cam. Jakai's another one, right? Jakai's another one, KCS. Leadership. As we continue the conversation on what happened last year, we talk about the leadership aspect, and there was a lot of talk about the lack of. There were no on-field leaders. Well, that just goes right back to my original point with the Tate Rodemaker transfer portal conversation. Why do you think there were no leaders? Because usually your leaders, I mean, I know this is a new era of football, and with the transfer portal, guys are kind of coming and going like free agency. And so your roster looks vastly different from year to year in college football. I get all of that. But your leaders usually are guys that bleed the colors, man. In their bedrooms as kids, they had flags up and pictures up and all of these things. Your guys are usually those guys. I'm not saying leaders can't be from the transfer portal, but your guys are usually like your homegrown guys. Florida State might have a similar issue this upcoming year with this in terms of leadership. Because if I asked you, I go, well, who are the leaders on this particular football team in 2025? And again, I know we're talking 2024, but just quickly, if I asked you, you're going to name transfer portal. You're going to say, well, TC is going to be a leader, or one of those O linemen are going to be a leader, or James Williams is going to be like that's, or Shaq Thompson or Herring. That's all fine and dandy, but maybe I need Blake Nicholson or Omar Graham or um, I can't name a quarterback because we don't have any. Uh, Somebody who's been on this team for more than a day, um, to set the standard of what Florida State football is. Um, when we talk about on the field and what one of the problems was and why 2024 team, you had guys, and this is another part of it. When we talk about leadership, you had a lot of times your best players are your leaders, or the guys with the most notoriety are your leaders. One of the big issues with FSU last year is your guys that had the most hype played the laziest. Your Marvin Jones Juniors, Patrick Payton should have been a guy on the front leading, and just played abysmal. Joshua Farmer, individual talent. I've always said individually great talent, but he wasn't a leader, and you could tell he wasn't a leader. Every offseason, it was something with Joshua Farmer, whether it was fabricated or real. I'm not even here to get into that conversation. But every offseason, there was something with Joshua Farmer. Well, it's hard to be the leader in that instance. Individually, talented guy. Couldn't galvanize anybody around him like a Jared Verse could. Or a Jermaine Johnson could. Or hell, even a Fabian Lovett. Offensively, DJU wasn't a leader at Clemson. He wasn't a leader at Oregon State. I don't know what made anybody think DJU was going to come in and lead the football team, lead that offense. That was, oh man, just the whole DJU thing is I don't know, that could probably be a whole nother conversation. Despise the DJU take from the beginning, but that's neither here nor there. And then Roydell, one of the things that kind of irks me is we listen to, because one thing I'll say about Roydell, right? You listen to his interviews, the man sounded like a leader. But this is where I want Florida State fans to stop listening to interviews and thinking, because I'm hearing it about TC already. Oh, did you hear his interview? I love this guy. He's going to be. First of all of these players are pretty well versed in the media in today's day and age. Like, they know how to get in front of a camera because everybody has a camera. We're all walking around with cameras 24/7, instant access. These guys know how to talk in front of a camera. They know how to be political more than any generation of kid before them. Stop listening to these interviews and thinking that translates somehow to being on the field, a good football player, or even a leader. Not saying that TC won't be. I'm just saying we're so quick to jump on an interview and take it at, oh, this means it's going to be X, Y, and Z. They didn't bring in any true blue leaders. You didn't have any on the team. You lost the Fisk. You lost the Lovitz. You lost your leadership from the year before, and nobody took that brass ring. Nobody snatched it and said, I'm going to fill the void that Jordan Travis left, that Trey Benson, like, no, nobody did that. Nobody did. This brings me to my next two big points, but before I get to the next two big points of what happened, saw some comments. So Panama says, what do you think about Mekhi Danzy switching from running back wide receiver? Sounds good to me. Danzy was a guy that I thought they were going to use as more of a receiving back anyway. I didn't really think, at least not in like this year, they would use him as a between the tackles type of a runner. They would kind of, when you got that type of speed, and then you also bringing in a highly touted freshman, you still got Cam Davis. Roydell's still on the team, by the way. I thought, okay, Kaziah's still on the team, by the way. I said, okay, if Danzy's really going to make an impact, it's going to be some like receiving out of the backfield type stuff. Well, instead, they said, you know what? Instead, we're going to just move him to receiver. I think that says a couple things about your receiving core, maybe not positive, maybe not good things. But ultimately, you do need more speed at receiver. Is I would question, first of all, is Squirrel Wright healthy? That's been a big question since you got him from Tennessee. He was productive when healthy, and his season finished prematurely last year because of health. If you're moving Danzy, another speedy player, is Squirrel White healthy? Or another player I would look at is Jalen Brown just not progressing, who's another speedy receiver? Is he just not stepping up and producing or progressing the way maybe they anticipated? He was just a freshman last year, by the way. So I would hope they're not giving up on him too soon, but maybe they're just not seeing what they need to see in him. So you want to add more speed. More speed's never a problem. But I do question are some of those receiving prospects maybe not living up. But I have no problem with it. I like the move actually. Big Jarrett Jackson need to become the leader of that defense this year. I mean, again, hopefully, hopefully. But I think that's going to be a huge question. I think it's going to be a huge question this upcoming year. Is same. I think they're going to have one of the same questions. Who's going to be the leaders? Who's stepping up in the leadership role in 2025? That 2024 O line was so sorry. Them seniors didn't. Nobody did. Let's talk about it though, since you brought it up because I love it. Darius. I don't even want to focus on buyers. Don't care. I want to focus on. I want to focus on Darius and Maurice. Darius Washington is the biggest of all the players, and there's a bunch of them. Whether you think it was Pat Payton, some it might be Pat to some, might be Patrick Payton to some, it might be Shaheem Brown to some others. As far as biggest disappointments from like the veterans, for me it was by far Darius Washington, a guy that I thought, if you remember, I said preseason might be the best player on the football team, Darius Washington. And boy, did he turn me into a stone-faced liar. And I can't explain it other than he capped out, and I can't explain what happened to Darius Washington. I can't explain what happened to Maurice Smith. Two guys on that offensive line that played so much football. Richie Leonard was easily your best offensive lineman, and then he gets hurt. Your center shouldn't have been an issue. Snapping the ball shouldn't have been an issue because Maurice Smith has played 1,000 college football snaps. And that's being light, probably. Like, seriously. FSU had Maurice Smith as their center since he was a freshman. FSU had Darius Washington playing all over the O-line since he was a freshman. And those two were just the biggest disappointments, I think, from last year's football team, from a veteran standpoint. On an O-line that a lot of us thought, myself, would be a strength of that football team. And it's crazy because that first drive against Georgia Tech, that's exactly what it looked like. And I don't know. I don't know what happened. It's like somebody cast a spell on that football team after that first drive against Georgia Tech, because that was the best it ever looked. It never looked any better than it did that first drive against Georgia Tech. Montre says nobody stands up. Williams says I think Dane's become a dangerous receiver. Boggs, I like him a lot actually. I think that's a guy that can play. I don't want to say immediately, but I think he can get some reps as a freshman. It's always tough gauging freshman receivers, but I like Boggs. I like the future. The offensive line was terrible, and it probably shouldn't have been that bad. I don't know if they were. They wouldn't coach. They weren't coached up right, or they didn't care. Mo and Darius forgot how to play football. 100%. So this is going to lead into Actually, I'm gonna save this one for last. Let's move on. Let's go to this one, and I'll put this last next point. I'll put this last. Bad coaching, man. When we talk about what happened in 2024, ultimately, we talked about all of that stuff to say. When I say bad coaching, I mean bad coaching on and off the field. Right? I mean bad coaching on and off the field, man. Bad decision making. You stuck with DJU way too long. Rotating offensive linemen way too much. Bad evaluations. We've already touched on that. Like just piss poor. Can anybody think of a positive from a coaching standpoint? It's hard to come up with positives on 2-10. What did Mike Norvell himself said it in a recent interview a couple weeks ago? That his demeanor, he had bad demeanor on the sidelines last year. Well, no shit. And you remember I was talking about his demeanor on the sidelines all of last year. People were kind of dismissing it. And I'm like, well, as a head coach, man, I get it. You suck, but you can't show that you suck. Just across the board. I can't think of anything that the coaching staff did right. I can't think of a good decision that the coaching staff had. Was there any good evaluations? The best decision might have been moving Earl Little from nickel to safety because Earl actually started playing better there. This is a great point from Panama Jack because this goes back to the coaching I'm talking about. I don't know how you watch Byers and Bless and decided, I think Byers is better than Bless Harris is expendable, so I'm going to let him walk for Jeremiah Byers. Even if you wanted to keep Byers, you should have moved Darius to either center or one of those guard spots. Imagine how better I think your O-line looks last year. If you keep Bless and either Darius and Bless are playing tackle with Byers at guard, or vice versa, is Byers and Bless at the tackles with Darius at one of the interior spots. Then you probably don't even need to go get a Richie Leonard. Or you can still get Richie and don't go get a Terrence Ferguson. But the decision making where we all watch Bless Harris for 2 years suck. For 2 years, we watched that man not have a good rep. And they looked at it and said, well, Bless Harris, you're expendable. Explain that. You got to explain that for me. You have to explain that for me. You knew DJU wasn't elevating the offense. Again, I never said Brock Glenn was going to come in and set the world on fire, but I thought that the team needed a different direction, and they waited so long to finally pull the plug there. Why did you play Kyle Morlock so many reps and have him have so many drops before you finally said it's going to be the Landon Thomas and Amari Williams show? Eventually you did it, but why did it take so long? Why did it take so long? It's these type of questions. When I say coaching failures, just bad coaching, this is the stuff I'm talking about. I get it. You gotta use the guys you got. But if we're at home watching guys just be utter, complete disasters, and at one point, Landon Thomas was the number one tight end in the country. That whole recruiting thing's fluid. He went from 1 to 5 or whatever he ended up being. It doesn't really matter. He was a top tight end in the country. Tell Kyle Morlock to get his ass on the bench. You understand what I'm saying? Like, they took so long to make decisions. We asked all year for Elijah Moore, and we never got him. We got a little bit more of LaWayne McCoy, but we saw Kentron all year. We saw Darian all year. And I'm saying to myself, I don't give a damn what you think about the freshmen. They can't be any worse. They can't be any worse. They can't be any worse. Bad coaching, man. And that's just not even from a schematic. I mean, yeah, we can go to the scheme all we want. The scheme is what the scheme is. Adam Fuller always ran that same scheme. It's just in a year where he didn't have elite prospects. You got to think. This is like the first time we watched the Adam Fuller defense without a Jermaine outside of the year one, where we almost wanted him fired after year one. But then all of a sudden, you had Jermaine Johnson and Jamie Robinson on the defense. And then you went from Jarrett Verse on the defense with Bethune and Deloach. And then you went Jarrett Verse on the defense with Fisk and Bethune and Deloach. And Jerry and Jones and Ronaldo, like NFL guys, right? Then we finally got a Jarrett Verse, we got an Adam Fuller defense, and other than Farmer, there was really nothing there. Because Pat just decided, I cashed the check in the offseason. I ain't got to play this year. Marvin Jones Jr. arguably has never had it. Maybe he'll go to Oklahoma and find it, but he ain't had it yet. Your linebackers were learning on the job. If I want to defend any position group on the team, I'll defend them to the aspect of they were learning on the job because Sean Murphy, who you brought in, Cam Riley played somewhat solid when he had opportunities to. And then again, Shaheem Brown was supposed to be whatever he was supposed to be, and he just fell flat. These boys are over here throwing bombs in this fight. I don't know if anybody else was watching the fight. Coaching was awful, a bunch of mid. Jeff says the best decision is when they fired almost the whole staff on both sides of the ball and hired these new guys. KCS is constantly rotating the O-line guys, does not build leadership either. If you're a leader on an O-line, you will not leave the game unless injured. Atkins didn't allow O-line. I agree. Y'all know me. I complained even when I thought Atkins had a bright future. What was always my number one complaint about him? I said he rotates too much on the O-line. O-line is all about cohesion and consistency. Being able to communicate without verbally having to communicate, knowing that, a guard knowing that my tackle's going to slide this way, or if a guy stunts this way, my tackle ain't got to work because I know this guy, my center can just point it out. Like that's what the O-line is built off of. Our O-line looked clueless, and I wonder why. Bro, it was god-awful. And another thing, they should have went to Brock in the second half of Memphis. Like, yeah, yes, I remember us calling for that, for sure. You're a Charger fan, Brandon, coaching the safeties over there. Don't worry, Derwin will make them look good. Don't worry, Brandon. Derwin will make them look good. Yeah, I'm watching that fight. They look like this is a solid fight so far. Pat Payton will find out at LSU that he performed so well in 23 because of Verse and Fisk. So this is going to bring to the last point of what happened, and then we'll move on to what's next. And this is a hill that I'm going to die on, and I took a lot of heat for saying what I'm about to say. I took a lot of heat after 10-3, after 13-1 or 13-0. I took a lot of heat for insinuating, but ultimately 2024 happened because your staff is reactive and not proactive. When FSU finally started winning under Mike Norvell, I was one of, if not the first and maybe only person to say, now's the time to make them staff changes. The staff changes that we finally made, well, go figure, after 2-10, you had no choice. If you make them changes a year earlier, you never have that 2-10. Frankly, I don't even know why JP still has a job, but that's maybe a whole nother conversation. But one of the worst things you can be as a decision maker is to be reactive and not proactive. Simply meaning don't wait for something to happen to want to change it. have the foresight to go, okay, we're good, but we can be better. We can improve. After last year, I said, now is the time. Mike Norvell just signed the extension. Let's get rid of X, Y, and Z, and let's go hire some guys that can boost. Nope. I got argued with. Yeah, you're crazy. They just won 13 games. There's no way you fire anybody. Blase, blase, blase. Okay. Mike Norvell's been at Florida State for 5 years. He hasn't cracked the top 10 recruiting class yet. A lot of that's on him. A lot of that is on his staff and not having big-time guys on the staff, period. Instead of hiring guys to improve it, you stand pat. Well, here you are in 2020, going into 2025. When you had the best opportunities, I think, to maybe hire, because even I thought FSU made some good hires this offseason, to be fair. I really do. But everybody knows Tim Harris wasn't the top of FSU's wide receiver coaching board. Even the safety coach, I don't think FSU was all in on him. From what I understand, they wanted another linebacker coach. That's why they had to settle for JP. The point is, yes, I like your offensive and defensive coordinator hires. I really do. I actually like your safety hire, and I like Knighton as the D-line coach. I mean, because a certain guy who's, I guess, retired but not retired, whatever he's doing, but God bless Odell, but we got some new blood there on the D-line. But why did it take? Why did we have to wait till 2-10? Why did we have to wait till 2-10 for me to go? For now, I have to sit here and go, I told you so. I told you so. Told you. Now everybody wants these guys fired. Well, it would have been a lot easier to just go, hey, man, thank you for what you've done, but we're just going to move in a different direction. Instead, you extended all of those coaches that you ended up firing anyway. And nothing they had done up until that point deserved. The only coach that I was surprised to see get fired, and not because I'm some fan, but when you're the defensive coordinator and you are getting guys drafted to the NFL and you are wielding a top 10 defense, I was a little surprised that they actually fired Adam Fuller. I said that. I didn't think they were going to fire him. I ain't mad that they did, but I'm just saying I didn't think it was going to happen. But this staff is very reactive, man. And at some point you have to – you got to – I mean, the smart coaches, they see it coming. Right? The coaches that last in the game see it coming. The coaches that eventually get to that top tier echelon of, I hate to say it because I don't really like the guy, but a Dabo Swinney didn't just – he went out and got a Venables, man. He remember, he went out and got the Chad Morrises. Like, you went out and Clemson wasn't exactly sorry when he made those hires. They weren't elite Clemson at that time. But Dabo was still winning 8, 9, 10 games. But he still had to go out and he had to make the right hires to go, okay, we're here. Let's take it to here. Dabo didn't have to go 2-10 before he said, you know what, I'm going to go get Brent Venables to coach my defense. If I'm not mistaken, it took West Virginia putting like 70 on them in a bowl game, but they still made a bowl game. As a matter of fact, I think they still won 8 or 9 games that year and went to the bowl game. Like, yes, West Virginia had to put 70 on him for him to go get Venables, but he still had a winning record, right? He still had a winning record. He didn't have to go 2-10 to make that decision. You're not going to hear me say too many nice things about Mario Cristobal, but he just won 10 games and decided, I need a new defensive coordinator because obviously I need a defensive coordinator. I'm going to fire this guy because our defense was historically god-awful last year. And if I had a good defense last year, I'm probably in the playoff. According to Florida State fan logic, if that was Mike Norvell, they would have said, we won 10 games. You can't fire our defensive coordinator. We'll figure it out. We'll get it together. You see the difference? That's the difference, man. You got to be able to move on from guys. The fact is, there's coaches that have How did Randy Shannon last as long as he did? Seriously. Co-defensive coordinator, linebacker coach. What did Randy Shannon ever do at Florida State to make him last as long as he ended up lasting? Couldn't recruit. I could have probably. I can get on college football 25 and recruit linebackers at Central Michigan better than Randy was doing at Florida State. Seriously, like you put all of that into one big pot, stir it up, sprinkle some shit on it, and that's how 2024 ended up happening. Brandon says if Derwin takes a step back, it's officially Fuller. Derwin might complain to HR. Fonte says bingo or bullseye. JP was saved through special teams. I think y'all know how I feel about that. The special teams won us so many games. With POLK on this point, I thought POLK was crazy on coaching changes, but you were right, bro. I appreciate that, Peter. We still lack the FSU caliber linebacker recruits, but I think our DC and defensive coaching staff will offset the issue. Well, I mean, I can't put so much on our guys this year. It's gonna take some time to get those linebacker, those relationships. It's gonna take some time to get those linebacker prospects in. Randy Shannon has done tremendous damage to serious, and I'm laughing like when I say it, but in all seriousness, Randy Shannon's tenure at FSU has done irreversible damage to the linebacking legacy at Florida State. Because I can list you a name of linebackers that has come through this program, and y'all know the big ones. The Derrick Brookses and the Marvin Joneses. But there's a whole bunch. Lawrence Timmons, Nigel Bradhams, Buster Davis, Kendall Pope, Tommy Polley, and Sam Cowart. And the list goes on. Telvin Smith to recent years, right? Kalen DeLoach. That wasn't a Randy Shannon recruit, by the way, but Kalen DeLoach. I don't know where Kalen DeLoach, he doesn't quite, fall in that line of guys I named, but he's a good recent backer. Ernie Sims. But I'm talking All-Americans. When I talk about these other guys over here, those are all Americans. Some of them first-round picks. Hall of Famers. And then Mike Norvell era when it comes to linebackers. Crazy, right? Other than the Travis, and even the staff wasn't sold on him like the fans were. What the hell are we doing at QB? We have to get the QB players want to play for it. Look at UF Lagway. Only thing I was mad about Fuller was third and get off the field downs. That's a good point, Montre. But back to this comment here. Yeah, ultimately, like I understand why Croman Hope left because you didn't sign up to play in a Gus Malzahn style offense. 100% get that. I'm not mad at Croman Hope for it. I fully expected it when they hired Gus. But see, that comes down to what I'm talking about with these bad coaching decisions. Like, I understand why. And again, I actually like the Gus hire. But there's a total picture, right? You're painting an entire picture, not just one singular moment or singular instance. You have to look at what you have. Like Mike Norvell, you understood when you hired Gus that you didn't have a Gus kind of quarterback on the staff. He had to know that when he went with Gus, Croman Hope was not like he had to know that. So this kind of goes back to a real Mike Norvell has a disconnect, in my opinion, with what it takes to run a college football team at an elite level. At Memphis, It might be more about the coaching. I get it because you're not getting elite players here at Florida State, and you have to value. And I hate to say it like this, you have to value the player over the coach. I get it. Gus is your boy, and you trust him in X, Y, and Z. And I'm not saying Luke Kumahawk is going to turn into a Heisman winner or anything like that. But hell, he was a top quarterback coming out of his class. You wanted him, you recruited him, you did all of that to get him there. You had him on the roster, and you didn't bring in anybody to fit his skill set. Instead, you said, I'd rather bring in Gus. You can go wherever you go, and then I'll go get a guy who's already transferred from 2 other schools, who's also 5'9", so he's not a prototype quarterback, inconsistent as a passer, athletic, can run, but okay. Again, what are we doing here at the quarterback position? But that's been Mike's MO since he's been the coach here. And I've spoken about that at length. That's one of the biggest indictments on him as an offensive coach, an offensive genius. His quarterback avals have been maybe the worst in the country. Just go look. You inherited Jordan Travis, thank God. Because if you look at everybody except Jordan Travis, everybody that they've brought in has been a bust. Whether it's Tate Rodemaker, Chubba Purdy, A.J. Duffy. I don't want to call Luke Kumahawk a bust, but he ain't here no more. I would hate to call Brock Glenn a bust, but it's looking like that. That's 5 quarterbacks. If I'm forgetting somebody, I feel like I'm even forgetting a name. Oh, Mackenzie Milton, there's 6. DJU, there's 7. Mike Norvell's quarterback evals are trash. So you got to question, it could be one of the two. It could be both. Goes back to bad coaching. Because in a lot of ways, I talked about Tate Rodemaker and how that situation, I think, started off 2024. But if you even want to take it a step further, Tate Rodemaker arguably shouldn't even be in that position. Because where's Chubba Purdy? Where the hell's A.J. Duffy? So either you evaluate bad or you develop bad. Or you do both. Because some of these quarterbacks that you've brought in have been 4-star guys. So either your evals are trash, or not only are your evals trash, but then once you get a hold of them, you can't develop them. Pretty poor resume at the quarterback position when you start talking about this staff as a whole. One thing I was mad about, I think I read that one. Chris Marv and Randy as my linebacker coaches. What up, Terrell? What's good? So ultimately, again, I think if you take all of that, I think that's what happened in 2024. I think it was Tate Rodemaker. That situation started off an entire thing of distrust and just lack of leadership in that room. I think guys legitimately looked at Tate Rodemaker's situation and said, if Mike Norvell is so willing to push him to the side, and he recruited him out of high school, and he's been at Florida State with Mike Norvell this whole time, what's the chance I have at playing on this team? Which I think built that lack of trust, just the misuse of the transfer portal. Again, not that you use the transfer portal, but that the way in which you handle the portal, instead of, I've always said, recruit certain positions and then you can bring in portal players in other positions. FSU has had this mindset of just bring in portal guys, even in positions that you've recruited. So you're sending a message to the guys that you're telling in the recruiting process, hey, you're going to come here and be the future. Well, actually, you're not, because we're going to bring in a portal guy to take your place. Which, again, lack of development. We've talked about that ad nauseum, which bred to the lack of leadership, which we've talked about at that. And then the bad coaching, which we've spent a bunch of time on. And then, again, being reactive instead of, I think, ultimately, this staff didn't have the foresight to see what was happening in 2024. And ultimately, a point I didn't hit on, but I'm gonna end on this point before we get into what's next. You wasted money on positions that you could have let walk. And that's what they did this offseason. They finally told Pat Payton, bro, you're good. We're just going to let you go. I don't know if Pat Payton was trying to get more money or if he just didn't want to be here no more. Probably didn't want to be here no more after last year and hearing everything that everybody was saying about him. And I get it, man. That's a premium position. And I know FSU felt, and they felt like they had to bring Pat Payton back. I get it. So it's hard for me to criticize them because the step that you thought Patrick Payton was going to take. But ultimately, you let certain players hold you hostage for a bigger bag, and then those players ended up not producing the way they were supposed to. And to take my Tate Rodemaker take one step further, how much money do you think they gave DJU to come here? What if you pocket that money and invest more in the O line, or invest in better D linemen? I don't know. You waste and went with Tate Rodemaker, and you wouldn't have had to spend that money on a DJU, and you could have used that money to allocate and somewhere else. Decision making, man. And I don't think last year had anything to do with the snub per se or the Georgia loss. I think it all started when Mike Norvell lost the team. The way he started treating, I think Mike Norvell was a bit of an. I do think the snub affected Mike Norvell to the degree where he kind of went to a panic mode. But ultimately, is the way he handled the offseason, which I think that led to 2024. I think the Gus hire will eventually bring better style QB to Florida State. I hope so. I said this when we hired Gus. As much as I like the Gus hire, I was very clear about this too. Gus doesn't have a great track record of quarterbacks either. I mean, again, I hope so, but his track record isn't great either. Jordan Travis should have never been put in a position to get hurt in the North Alabama game. He should have been up by 30 at halftime, and Jordan Travis should have had his ball cap on. Yeah, if you remember the beginning of that game was a little closer than it should have been. And then, yeah. DJ was getting $600K. Again, I don't know what they could have did with the $600K, but you could have put it somewhere else, is all I'm saying. All right, guys, hit the like button. Again, hit the like button. Share the video. Give me 1 second because I need a refill. All right. We're going to move on. And we're going to move on to now what's next. And here's the bigger question. Here's the question that I pose to all of you. I just want honest answers, and I'm not here to tell you that you're right or wrong, because ultimately this is just an opinionated question anyway. It's your feelings. Does any put a 1 in the chat if you have faith in Mike Norvell going forward? Put a 2 if you've lost faith. I just want to see where the chat lies in their thought process here. 1 if you have faith, 2 if you don't. I'll give y'all time to do that, and I'm going to check the Twitter line. Again, 1 for faith, 2 for no faith. Oh, man, we got a lot of optimism. I ain't mad at it, man. Oh. No, sir, not me, says no faith. Everybody else, they have faith that Mike Norvell can turn this around. And I love the fact that I love it. I love the optimism. I love we were horrible, so bad, so bad. Well, what do you got, James? Give me. You got one or two? KCS with the riding the fence here. He goes 1 and 2. Not KCS. I need an answer. Groit's going 2. But for the most part, man, I got a lot of optimism in the chat right now. Even Williams got it. Williams at 1. Vontae says, I don't know yet, so I'm going to ride the fence too. Okay. I ain't mad at none of these answers. Again, ultimately, it's just how you feel, right? And I'm only going to explain how I feel. Mike just had bad coaches around him. And I can understand that aspect of it. I'm not going to do my best to not ride the fence either, right? Kind of like KCS here. I could easily say 1 and 2. I got faith because of the staff. Mike has proven that he can win at this level and he can do it again. And William think we're going 10 and 2. Well, I'm going to use this comment right here because ultimately, and I'm going to answer it this way and then I'm going to give you the real answer. He has to do that. Mike Norvell has to do, I'm trying to point to it in the camera. Mike Norvell has to do that. You want me to have faith, and he has to do that. As easily as he went from 13-0 or 13-1 to 2-10, he has to have the reverse. I'm going to tell ultimately, here's my problem. If you're forcing me to give the same answer that I've asked y'all to give me, again, I got a lot of 1s here, and I respect all of that. Ultimately, I fall on a 2. And I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I'm not trying to be one of those. I'm just giving you my honest assessment. And the reason I'm at a 2, this feels like a restart in year 6. That's my problem. What are we going? We're going in year 6 or year 5 right now. Hell, I don't even know. Does it even? No. COVID. So what? 2020, 21, 22, 23. Yeah, we're going into year 6. When I say that to myself, I get pissed off. We're going into year 6, and we are literally at a soft reset right now. Damn near a hard reset. Arguably, this is a hard reset because you just fired both your coordinators and have new coordinators. It's hard to have faith in year 6. Year 6, we should be talking about playoffs. Like, we should be at a certain level here, and we should be every level, every year, ACC championship playoff, championship run. Like, in that, and we're talking about this is where I'll fight back. And again, I'm not trying to attack people that have the optimism. But to all my people that put a 1, to all my people that put a 1 in the chat, what is a good season this upcoming year? In year 6. And if your answer is anything less than that 10 and 2, and I'll even say 9 games to be friendly, then I'm sorry, folks. You're talking too little, too late. In all seriousness, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm being honest with you. If in year 6, y'all are talking about 7 wins is a good year, I got news for you. You're Duke. You're NC State. You're Syracuse. You are a middle of the pack ACC team. Because if in year 6 we're talking 7-8 wins, what do you think year 7 and 8 are? So you're telling me you're going to take Mike Norvell 4 years, to get back? I'm glad I'm seeing I appreciate that y'all are saying 9-10 wins because realistically that's what it is. But now I pose the question for y'all that say that. Is it realistic how this roster is constructed, do y'all see 9, 10 wins? Less than 4 wins is mid. Less than 4 losses is mid. Got to win 9 regular season games in a bowl game. William says, "Go Noles beat Bama." Yeah, I'm all for it. Go Noles beat Bama for sure.
More money. Yeah.
He needs an immediate turnaround is the point. I think from what I'm seeing, from what I'm seeing, everybody is in agreement that he needs an immediate turnaround. Here's the other side of that coin, though. Yeah, I hear you, Panama. I'm not arguing with you, but we just went 2-10 in the sorry ass ACC, so it's really hard for me to even go that route with you. I hear you. There used to be a time where I said, "Yep, you in the ACC, man. That's a given." In the ACC, hell, that should give you 8 wins, 7 wins right there. And then you got your out of conference games. Every year you should be flirting with 9 wins. 8 wins should be a bad season. You just went 2-10. So we're all in agreement that he needs an immediate turnaround. But here's the other side of that coin. And this is going to really go to, I guess, the staff that he's currently put together. But the question becomes, the rhetorical question is, well, how do you win football games? What's the most important thing to win football games? Well, the most important thing to win football games is getting a certain caliber of football player. Even when that man was going 10-3 and 13, again, never has had a top 10 class. And I believe I have to go check. Someone can fact check me if they want to. I believe the man's only ever had one top 15 class at Florida State. That's crazy in 5 years itself. Not only have you not ever had a top 10 class at Florida State in 5 years, you can only count one top 15 class. And that was your undefeated regular season. My question is it too little, too late? Part of me think there's a part of me that really think there's this stigma around just this program as long as Mike Norvell's the coach. And until there's just gonna have to be some drastic things that happen. FSU's gonna have to land premier prospects and keep them. Because all of that stuff goes hand in hand. Winning games and winning recruiting day, early signing day, the signing, like that goes hand in hand. You know, you win early, you win signing day, and you win football games ultimately. The crazy thing is this past season, in my opinion, was the best early signing day Mike Norvell's had, and he went 2-10. If there's something positive that you want to look for, maybe that's it. And maybe you can build off of that, assuming next year you have a solid season. I know you lost Solomon Thomas, but none of us ever expected Solomon to stick through it. But the way you finished with Lee, you got those defensive ends and defensive linemen and the wide receiver, and the Florida State finished fairly strong. And you ended up with the top 20 class. I mean, that's a lot from where it came from. That was the best signing day Mike Norvell's had, and it went 2-10 to get there. I might have too, because I almost think we're so stagnant right now that in year 6, again, I want to say we're in the sorry ACC, but I'll be honest with you. I struggle. I got to see it. I'm at a point, man, where I got to see it. So if you're telling me 9-10 wins, I agree with you. That's what he needs. If you're telling me that's what I think we're going to get, well, you got Bama to start out. I don't even have the schedule pulled up, but just off the dome, we know how many games are in a regular season. Was it 12 regular season games, correct? Bama, Florida, Miami, Clemson. In order to get that 9 or 10 that we're talking about, what's FSU's record? Forget what the rest of the schedule is. In order to get the 9 or 10 that we're talking about, if we're getting 10, FSU has to go 500 in at least those 4 games. At least 500. And that means you have to, if you go 500 in those 4 games, that means you legit have to run the rest of the table. You got NC State on the road, I think on a Friday night. Those haven't historically been great. Even when FSU's been good, that hasn't been a historically great game for Florida State. Do you see where I'm going when we talk about why I'm at a 2 and why I just don't have faith that this thing gets to where we want it to be? Again, I don't have the schedule, but I know we have an NC State on the road prime time, like Thursday or Friday night game. We usually lose those. We usually lose. Even when we're good, we usually lose those. Do you see how unrealistic 9-10 wins probably is? If you're being completely honest with yourself, Florida State fans, is Florida State more talented than Bama, UF, Clemson, or UM? As a matter of fact, in all 4 of those games, who has the better quarterback? I don't even know who the starting quarterback for is Bama, so maybe that's a wash. Or if I want to be nice, I'll give it to Florida State. I don't know who the starting quarterback's going to be for Bama. Even though I don't have a bunch of faith in TC, let's say FSU has the nod against Bama. I'm not giving him the nod against Lagway and UF as far as just who has better quarterback. He don't get the nod against Klubnik, against Clemson. And I'm not even the biggest Carson Beck guy, but I would take Carson Beck over TC. Like, what are we talking? Like, again, I'm not trying to be that guy. I'm simply asking you a question. Realistically, 10-2, 9-3, is that realistic when you actually break the schedule down? I'm gonna need some things to go our way to get 10-2, and that's the problem with the roster. I trust Gus to get that O-line figured out and the run game back on track. Okay, I don't disagree. No idea how the defense will look, but I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see it too, honestly. You're gonna see the first top 10 class this year because this is a different beast of a coaching staff than we had before. I believe getting those 2 early FCS wins early in the season will help this team's morale. I mean, but you still open with Bama. But I hear what you're saying. Even if you lose to Bama, you got some cupcake games there that you can get your confidence back. I hear you. And then if you beat Bama, then you pile it on with those 2 early games. Will also like have you on cloud 9. So, yeah, toughest games, and talked about that one. The schedule of Murderers Row isn't that difficult. You have 4 tough games. Somebody put I ain't got the stream. Did you hear Atkins' interview? Did you hear his statement on his loyalty to his players? I actually did not hear the interview. And this is me taking this out of context, right? But based on what you're saying here, loyalty to his players. Alex Atkins got transfer portal players every year here to beat out his players. So I'm not sure what the loyalty is that he's referring to. TC's going to be our Kyler Murray. Like, I hope so, bro. Don't get me wrong. I hope so. I really do. I really hope so. I really do. You know, Gus took a safety and made him a quarterback. You don't have to have He did that 10, 11 years ago, Jeff. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I know what he did with Nick Marshall. I also know what he's done in the 10 years since Nick Marshall. Again, go look at his track record at quarterbacks since Nick Marshall. I mean, Bo Nix got drastically better when he left Auburn and went to Oregon. Like, and again, I like the Gus hire. I really do. But I don't expect it to be a quarterback factory under Gus. I'm thinking more of a high pace run, smash mouth type football where you take your shots with the quarterback. And I think if Gus can get the right quarterback, then I think you could have something special. But that's a big if. I would be happy if he was. I'd be happy if TC could just be Nick Marshall, bro. If we can get Nick Marshall, maybe we got something cooking there. I'm not worried about at all. Beck may not even be ready. See, I hear you. I hear you. And we do play Miami early this year. So I do hear you. I know Beck had the Tommy John, and we'll see how that recovery goes. But it's hard for me to go, I'm not worried about anybody after 2-10. As I don't know what just happened. I think I'm back. My screen just kind of went on the fritz. It looks like we're good. But the point I was trying to make before I cut out was even if you look at, if we just talk about Miami here, let's not talk about quarterback. What other positions on the team, if we want to match up with Miami, position by position, that Florida State has the edge in? Because notoriously, you haven't recruited better than Miami since Mario's got there. That's a fact. Mario, unlike Norvell, not only does he recruit well, he also does fairly decent in the transfer portal for the most part. I don't think he does as good as Norvell in the portal, but he's kind of high school recruiting kind of offsets some of that. So if I said, does Miami have a better O-line than Florida State? I would say yeah. Just based on Miami's O-line since Mario's been there, I would say yes. Does Miami have better receivers than Florida State? I think there's a conversation to be had. I don't really know the depth of Miami's roster to say yay or nay. I know they got some high school big names, but FSU's got the transfer portal names. Who ends up winning in that battle? Does Miami have a better D-line? Well, they still got Ruben Bain, Blount, and then some other guys. They've recruited some guys. FSU's going to this 3-man front. My point is, man, if you go position by position against some of these teams, just on paper. Now, the beautiful thing about football is the games still have to be played. The beautiful thing about football is FSU is getting James Williams. They're getting guys that are going to be, I think, McCray. These guys are going to be hungry to prove that they – Williams played at Nebraska, so he played at a Power 5 level. But the point I'm trying to make is you're gonna get guys at Florida State who are going to be motivated, hopefully, because we kind of said some of this last year, but they're going to be motivated to prove that they can play at this level. Like I expect big things from McCray. I actually think he's a good football player. James Williams. If you haven't heard, Jenkins, the Tennessee 6'6", 280-pound D lineman, will probably miss all of the spring, which is going to probably set him back, which is a guy who I thought who could have played a big part on this D line, and that's being reported by 247, by the way. So that's kind of a blow. But we're not talking a lot about. I mean, FSU finished the year with a 5-star recruit, which nobody expected. But Tyler Lee ended up being a 5-star, like a top 30 player in the country. That's a big deal. And I saw the pictures of him. That kid's every bit of what 6'5", 6'6", like 260. Like he's a real deal. Might get day one impact. Kevin Wynn, you might get day. So my biggest problem is FSU just has a bunch of questions and not a lot of answers. If I can recall, Arizona State won 3 games the year before they went to the playoffs. It's possible. It's 100% possible. It's 100% possible, Jeff. Arizona State did it. Hell, I think Indiana won 2 or 3 games and went to the playoffs as well. 100% possible. I'm not saying it's impossible. But you know why I hate the comparisons with Indiana and Arizona State? This is just my opinion. It's because they're Indiana and Arizona State. See, Indiana and Arizona State, they can, by the time people realized they were good, they had already snuck up. Because it's Indiana. It's Arizona State. Florida State doesn't have that benefit, Jeff. That's my counter argument to that. FSU's not sneaking up on that spear on that helmet. Everybody knows what that means when that walks into whether FSU's 2-10 or 10-2, 13-0 and 0-13. When the garnet and gold and that spear walk into your stadium, there's a different energy. You've seen it. Teams play their best. They're going to be inspired to play their best ball. When Indiana walks into the stadium, you're shocked if they're any good. Arizona State and Indiana can sneak up on teams. That by the time the country realized that Indiana and Arizona State were actually any good, they were already like 6-0 or whatever their records were. You understand what I'm saying? Florida State doesn't have that benefit. Bama's not going to sleep on Florida State, regardless of what their record was last year. I'm just telling you it's not going to happen. In the games that we're counting on, Miami, Clemson, and Florida, those teams don't sleep on Florida State. Oh, and go figure, also, FSU, because of its dominance in the ACC for years, NC State, all those teams still get up to play. When Florida State's on the schedule, they circle it. It don't matter if they're 2-10. Them teams are ready to play the Noles. So it sounds good, but the problem is no one takes Florida State lightly. So FSU doesn't get the benefit of the doubt to kind of figure it out because they're getting everybody's best ball from the jump. I haven't seen much of Nebraska film. What's your feel on how this defense will come together this year? Great question. I think it's just going to depend on, and I'll be honest with you, I ain't watched a bunch of Nebraska film either. But I'm looking at the bodies. I think getting Daryl Jackson back is such a huge thing for this 3-man front because of the versatility he can play. I really wish Jenkins didn't get hurt because that kind of sucks because he's also a guy at that size that can play a lot of versatile roles along that D-line. But McCray's going to be huge. I'm very interested to see guys that we're not talking about. Guys that we're not talking about is KJ and Lyons. I think those guys can play pivotal roles on this D-line. I really do. I'm interested to see how they use Amari. I'm interested to see. I got a weird feeling about Aaron Hester for some reason this year. I have a feeling he's going to play a lot more than we're expecting. I think they're going to use him as a off-edge type rusher. And they're going to mix him in with some of those bigger, longer defensive linemen. I mean, I love the fact that FSU went a bunch of length on this defensive front. I mean, I don't know if there's a defensive lineman. Is there a defensive lineman under 6'4"? Like, FSU's got a bunch of length. I'm interested to – that front seven is going to be so interesting with the combination of the big bodies and Jackson and Wynn and the KJ Sampson and the Daniel Lyons. Hell, I'm even interested to see, do we get a Denaz White sighting? What about Jamori Flagg? Where's he fit? FSU is about 5 or 6 deep on that defense, just the nose tackle. And then again, McCray. And then you got the JUCO guy who essentially is a freshman for you. What do you get out of that? Then you got LeJesse Harold. Well, where does he fit in all this? Where Tyler? Where does Lee fit? That's a big. There's a lot there. Um, then a combination with the Blake Nicholsons and the veteran linebackers mixed with some of these younger guys. And then I think your secondary will feed off that front seven if it clicks. The defense is I'm more excited to watch defense than offense. I'm way more, and I think we'll be able to run the ball very well this year. But I'm very excited to see how. I think FSU. I love what they did in the portal defensively because I think they really went to personnel and they really went into the fit. They didn't. I'm not saying they didn't go production because they did go get guys that were productive, but they really went with certain physical profiles defensively that I'm excited to see how it pans out. Vontae says the ACC teams always want the revenge on FSU. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And again, FSU is not sneaking up on anybody, good or bad. Defense is going to be good. Yeah, I'm kind of with you, no sir. I just have a feeling on that too. I think that defense is going to click. I think defense is going to click a little bit. Hopefully, dude is only out for the spring. Hopefully. I agree, hopefully. But even if he is only out for the spring, that's some reps and stuff with a new defense, a new terminology, and all these new things that come with playing in a new scheme and defense. I would have loved for him to get those reps to be ready. You know what I mean? Panama says the defense will fly in the scheme, watch the exotic secondary blitzes and linebacker blitzes. And by the way, I named all those guys, and I never even brought up James Williams. So FSU, defensively, man, I like the pieces. I really am excited about the pieces that we have defensively. I really am. 100% excited about the defensive pieces there. But yeah, this is this live stream, and we can keep it going, and we can ask some more of the questions. But this is how I want to close out that 2024 team. This is the last time I'm gonna talk about it. I'm leaving 2-10 in the past. It's over with. But I needed to get my thoughts. We needed to talk about that team and how it ended the way it ended. But from here on out, I mean, we're going 2025 and beyond. And whether that involves Norvell or not is irrelevant. At the end of the day, I don't root for Florida State because of the coach. I root for Florida State because of Florida State. So ultimately, I want Norvell to be successful. I just, 2-10 took a toll on me, guys. I don't know if you can tell. 2-10 took a toll on me, and I am not looking forward to anything close to that this year. And nor do I think that's going to happen. But I do think there's going to be some growing pains, man. I really do. I think they did a lot of good things in the portal, on the O-line, defensively, defensive front. But ultimately, man, for Florida State to kind of get to where they want to go, the portal guys, sure, but you're going to need guys to click that are unexpected. Like that's just how this game's going to have to play out. That's how this team's going to have to play out. Like you're like, okay, Deuce, Squirrel, cool. But a third wide receiver is going to have to step up. I don't know if that's Keem. I don't know if that's LaWayne McCoy or Elijah Moore or B.J. Gibson or Camden Fryer or whoever the hell. Or Boggs, right? I don't know who it's going to be. Somebody's got to emerge outside of just that, and that's assuming that those two are even any good for you, right? There's always a risk with those portal guys. But a true number one is going to have to emerge. And even if the number one emerges, you're going to need those other guys to step up. Like how much are you really putting on Chroma's back as a freshman to carry the running back load? Cam Davis is going to have to get a lot better in year two. Or Sam Singleton's going to have to get a lot better in year 2, or somebody. My point is somebody other than the freshmen we're going to have to look to. Offensive line. Do we think every single transfer portal guy on that O-line hits? You brought in what, 4, right? Yeah, I think you brought in what? Vanderbilt guy, the UCF guy, Ole Miss guy, and the Wake Forest guy. Yeah, you brought in 4, which means you still got another spot there. I think people think that'd be a Richie Leonard spot. He's still on the team. I would argue you still need about 2 other guys on that O-line to emerge. Whether that's Jalen Early or Andre Otto or Jonathan Daniels or somebody. You're going to need about 2 other guys on that O-line. So you can go position by position, and it's a hard ask to say that every transfer portal guy hits. Matter of fact, historically, we know that doesn't happen. Even if FSU has had great portal classes, there's always been guys that haven't hit. Whether Jermaine Johnson and Keir Thomas were great, and Jamie Robinson, like those 3 guys hit out of that portal class, but Andrew Parchment didn't hit. Y'all might not even remember the name of Maurice Cushing, but he didn't hit. He's in that same portal class, by the way. Braden Fisk and Fentrell Cypress hit, but that damn Byers didn't hit. So the point is, as much as we want to believe they hit nothing but home runs out of the portal, the fact is that's not the case. There's going to be guys that we got in the portal that not only, we don't get anything out of. Guys on that roster are going to have to step their game up. I would argue a guy like Blake Nicholson needs to take that next step to just being a guy to being an all ACC caliber player. Right? That's the type of stuff I'm talking about. Someone needs that. Yeah, well, more than someone, Vontae. I would say a handful of guys. Right? A handful of guys need to have some Kyle Morlock. Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, even if FSU's had good portal classes, everybody don't hit, man. Everybody don't hit. And that's my point. So some of your, Landon Thomas is going to have to take that next step. Right? We talked about bad coaching decisions. Here's one that's going to be, I'll tell you right now, if you're a Florida State fan, this is one of the decisions I need you to watch. Amari Williams. Okay? I'm of the opinion they should leave him at tight end. You spent his whole freshman year at tight end. You have a good 1-2 punch there with Amari, Landon Thomas. They're both big bodies. You combine them with the Deuce Robinson. You got some speed with Squirrel White and even Hakeem. Something like that's what I would do. But they're pretty adamant that he's making a move back to defensive end. Okay, you've wasted a year of defensive end development to go play tight end. I don't know how you could juggle both, but whatever. If Amari Williams goes – now, remember what he did as a true freshman on the offensive side of the ball. Amari Williams had some big catches for you. If he goes to the defensive side of the ball in sophomore year and we don't hear a peep from him, that's a bad decision, is it not? It'd be a great decision if he goes over there and flourishes. I'm just saying – I'm not saying that it won't happen. I'm saying watch that decision. When we talk about breakout players – like you're moving a guy who spent a year at tight end to back to defensive end. I don't know if I like that, but let's see how it plays out. Let's see. Because if I'm telling you, if he goes back over to defensive end and he can't crack the field, or he finishes the season with a handful of tackles and no sacks or something like that, what was the point? When he could have had more production as a tight end for you. Even though I understand they went and got the tight end from Pittman, Randy Pittman, I think is his name. I understand they went and got another tight end. But these are kind of the questions that I have because we talked about just the decision making and what that looks like. Right? What's up, Zay? What up, KCD? Yeah, breakouts are definitely needed on both sides and at all levels. Jaden Jones, is he going to do something? I wouldn't bank on Jaden Jones doing anything for you, personally. I definitely would have like the 2 tight end combo. I mean, technically, they still have a 2 tight end combo with Pittman and Landon. And I'm not saying that tight end combo can't work. I'm just saying if you leave Amari at tight end, is Pittman a guy that you use those? Remember we talked about that money and that. Do you waste money on a tight end, or do you use that money that you pay for that tight end on another defensive lineman or even another offensive lineman? You get what I'm saying? It's just those little decisions that we are coming to find out end up being big time decisions when it's all said and done. So that's just I would watch that Amari Williams thing personally. I'd watch that. I can't think of any other. Maybe watch the Mekhi Danzy thing, even though I don't think that's a bad decision. Can a guy like Mekhi Danzy break out in his new role as a wide receiver? I'm very interested to see those corners and to see if any of them break out in that new role as there's a lot's going to be asked of these young DBs. Zay says we will have to see, but in my opinion, that new defensive coordinator might save Mario. Bro, first of all, Mario's not getting fired. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see how y'all's new D coordinator how he turns out for sure. Yeah, you got Chase Lofton as another freshman tight end for sure. My guess is with Pittman, you're probably not going to ask a lot from Lofton. But again, if a guy plays his way into it, FSU's got a lot of big bodies. So one of the things they did is they went tall and they went long at a lot of positions. And I like it. So Lawson's not a guy that I would count to be a breakout guy, right? But, one of these, we talk about running backs. And can Roy Dell bounce back after being injured? I mean, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. So a question I will ask the chat, though, since we're talking about breakout guys, I mean, not counting the big names, right? Because we kind of know who those are. Who are your sleepers on the team? Because I'm thinking of them myself, and I struggle a little bit. Think of who are some of the sleepers. But who are your sleepers? Like, is there a sleeper at wide receiver that you think no one's talking about but could just completely knock it out of the park? Is there a sleeper at defensive line? Is there a sleeper in your secondary? Is there a sleeper at linebacker? But that's what the FSU is I think that's what it's gonna take. Is there gonna have to be guys that emerge that that teams aren't scouting for. There you go. I think that's the better way to explain that. You're going to have guys that emerge that you're just not ready for. Edwin. Edwin's probably a guy that people are expecting big things from. Not saying you're wrong, Casey Ace, but I wouldn't call him a sleeper because I'm expecting big things from Edwin. And Juice to step up at linebacker. Juice. Who the hell is Juice? Am I tripping? I don't know. At linebacker? Okay, hold on. Maybe I just don't. Your linebackers are Elijah Herring, Blake. Oh, Juice Cryer. See, that's why I had to get the names down. I'm like, who the hell is Juice? Cryer. Cryer's coming off that injury, so we'll have to kind of wait and see how he bounces back from that. We'll kind of have to wait and see how he bounces back from that. But I know he's coming off that injury, so I wouldn't. I would expect. Let's say Herring, Break, Shaq. I don't expect much from the UNC kid. If you get anything out of him more so, then that's actually a huge plus. And then you still got Omar. I think that's probably going to be your 4 to start off the season, right? Elijah, Shaq, Blake, and Omar. And they'll go from there. Who y'all got starting at corner? That's a great question because at this point, I do not know. I think it's going to be Q. So I'll go on a limb. I'll go Q. People might not be happy with this one because I won't say they won't be happy. I know a lot of people like Edwin at nickel. I'm going to go Q, Edwin, and I think we get someone else at that nickel, like a Ricky Knight, or maybe Knight at nickel and Edwin at Edwin at nickel and Knight can play outside. I mean, you still got Rawls, but I don't expect much from Rawls, if I'm being honest with you. Lester had that DUI, not saying that matters on the field, but if I know anything about Mike Norvell, Lester's not going to have to earn his spot. You got Kai Bates, like any of these guys, even the freshmen like Arnaud could be possible. I think Q. I'm gonna go with Q. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do the whole secondary because this is how my mind works. I'm gonna say Earl at one safety spot. I'm gonna go Earl and Kirkland. Shaheem Brown gonna stay his ass on the bench. He'll be a rotation, guys, if I'm the damn coach. I'm going Earl and Kirkland on my safeties. I'm going Q and or Earl and Hussey. Hussey, just thought about that. I think Hussey has a bigger upside than Kirkland, but Hussey had his issues last year. Okay, I'm changing that. Earl and Hussey. Say Hussey has a breakback year. Earl and Hussey. Earl at like the strong, Hussey at the free. Q and Bates. I'm going to say Kai Bates gets the nod. And I'm going to say Edwin at nickel. That's my secondary. Somebody tell me I'm wrong. We got like 30 wide receivers from high school recruiting that better see the field. I don't care who's at nickel, just glad it ain't Knowles. Wasn't Kai the one they said could cover Jeremiah in high school? Howard is a sleeper in that group. I'll give Howard, coming off that injury. That's my only concern. Definitely a sleeper, though. I agree. I expect he played plenty last year. I expect he plays this year. Played a lot last year. I expect he plays a lot this year. But that's my secondary. Just off the top. Earl, Hussey, Q, Edwin, and Bates. I'm going that. I'm gonna say your first corner off the bench. Even that's tough because again, if Lester, I think there's a lot up in the air with Lester seems to be too busy drinking and driving and maybe not focusing on the field. I don't want to go too deep into that because we're all young and we all make mistakes. He might have just had a fun weekend. It doesn't mean he's not working hard. But you got a DUI and you got arrested. You need to be held accountable for that, whatever that entails. I'm sure Mike Norvell will figure that out. So Lester, right? Rawls, I'll be honest with you, man. That's just not a guy that I think is FSU caliber football player. I said that when they recruited him, and I expect that those guys that they recruited to all surpass him. Then you got a guy like Ricky Knight, man. I was very tempted to put him somewhere in my secondary, but I got to see it, right? Haven't seen it yet. You still got we mentioned Kirkland. He was almost a starter, but I went with Hussey instead. When we're talking about safeties, you got Barker. You still got Shaheem on this team. Howard should be healthy this year, hopefully, right? Then you got the freshman one, Arnaud. Who's the other? Who's the Seminole? The actual Florida State. Who's the actual Seminole? I forget his name, but you also got him. You got safety, Red Morgan, I believe was his name. You got FSU just got a ton of DB guys, so no lack of options. No lack of options this year in that secondary. Zay Thomas. Yeah, I mean, you got him, man. You got Zay Thomas out there. I mean, right there, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just nine players. 9 of those, well, I will say about 8 to 7 of those are like blue chip caliber players. Except the only guys that weren't blue chip, I think, were what? Rawls and Shaheem coming out of high school. I think Ricky Knight might have been a 3-star too. I think he was a low 4-star. I don't remember. And Barker was a JUCO guy. So you got some quality guys out there, man. You got some quality guys out there. Here's the scary question, and we're going on 2 hours, but Ben, hit that like button for your boy. It's been so long, I figure I can give y'all a few hours. It's been so long. What happens if TC gets hurt? Do we think, and I'm asking this question not to be like, oh, FSU's in trouble. We might be in trouble if TC gets hurt. Don't get me wrong. How much do you think Gus is going to be developing Trevor Jackson this offseason? I got to think. Shout out to Brock Glenn for sticking with, for being no-blooded, man. I respect it. But Brock Glenn's got to kind of realize this probably isn't the offense for him. I'm asking because Gus has to be looking at Trevor Jackson and thinking, this guy might have the tools or the requisite skill set. Um, Let me say this. I would not be shocked if you saw Trevor Jackson maybe listed on your depth chart this year. I wouldn't be shocked. But Russell and Valenzuela going at it right now, by the way. Tony says, if TC gets hurt, yeah, it would be on 10. Daytona Supercross just ended. Let's let the show go on, POLK. And that's where everybody was at Daytona. Hopefully Trevor Jackson, because otherwise it's a wrap. It probably is a wrap. And I know you got the true freshman. I'd be interested to see Trevor or I don't. Hopefully we're not playing another freshman, but at least the freshman they brought in also would fit Gus's system. I get all of that. Again, shout out to Brock Glenn. He's going to bring that. He's the veteran. Well, TC's a veteran, but, Brock Glenn's been in this program. So he brings kind of that consistency. I don't know, man. If we want to start talking, I know I spent the whole first hour and 30 minutes of this show just kind of being, pessimistic on this whole Florida State thing, but that was all 2024. We're in 2025 now. I gotta think Brock. I gotta think Gus is looking at a Jackson and going, "All right, you're gonna be my prep project here." I gotta think. I think we shouldn't just give it to TC. I don't disagree. The problem is the roster dictates that you're just going to give it to TC. That's the problem, Vontae. I don't disagree. I think you should have a. That's one of the things I said is why you kind of didn't need to get a transfer portal quarterback last year. This year, you're supposed to be having a legit quarterback competition with Brock Glenn and Luke Cromenholt. Right? You're supposed to be having a legit quarterback competition. And instead, we're going into another offseason where we're kind of just handing the quarterback position, no real competition. Unfortunately, the roster doesn't really dictate that TC competes with anybody because no one else on the roster can do what he does athletically and what Gus does as an offensive play caller. That's the unfortunate part about it. When Mike Norvell made the decision with Gus, which again I'm not against, but your quarterback room wasn't exactly recruited in a way that said you got a bunch of dynamic athletes at quarterback that can run this system. It just ultimately we're giving it to TC and hoping he doesn't get hurt, right? I agree. Brock is in the new. Both of them are in a new system. Jackson has just as much chance. I agree with that. Maybe Glenn puts it together in the system with a good old line play. You're right. Who knows? Let's talk about that, Mighty No. Mighty No says he's very concerned about linebacker. So let's talk about. We talked about quarterback, obviously. We just put together an entire secondary, or at least I did. I'm look like a real good fight going on right now. But let's talk about linebackers because we kind of alluded to it earlier. But Juice Cryer, I'm putting a question mark because he's coming off an injury, right? You know, we don't know how he's going to play. That was a season-ending injury that happened to him. We'll see how that. But here's kind of who we know, right? Shaq Thompson, who played at Syracuse and Nebraska. He's followed Tony White everywhere. He's gone. You expect Tony White is going to have a lot of confidence in him. He's going to see the field. Elijah Herring played at Tennessee and Memphis. Very productive, especially at Memphis. A downhill thumper. I don't know if he's I don't really know if he's might be Lundy-esque. Don't know if he's a very sideline to sideline guy, right? But a guy that I expect will play. I think he's more athletic than Lundy, by the way. Blake's the guy that I'd put the asterisk by, because Blake is the guy who's the 4-star talent, who's the guy who you go, he does have the athleticism. He can run. He can be your sideline to sideline guy. Can Blake put it together this offseason and kind of emerge as the guy in that linebacker room? Omar Graham played well down the stretch last year after really starting off the season. Omar Graham started off the season looking like D-Jack. I remember how bad D-Jack used to look. Omar Graham started off the season looking like that. We'll see how he plays out. Out of those 5, again, question mark by Juice. These other 4 I 100% expect to be in the mix. What else are we looking at linebacker? Again, I know you had the guy from UNC. Freshman. The man, I mean, listen, I forget his name. And frankly, I forgot his name because I'm one of those that don't look at that kid from UNC and go, he's an instant impact guy. It doesn't mean he can't be a good player in the future. But people use the bowl game against UConn to tell me that you're bringing in the best linebacker. Like, people legitimately told me this guy's gonna be the best linebacker on the roster. Or let me rephrase that. They legitimately told me, he's the best linebacker on the roster right now. And I said, based off what? They said, the UConn game. 1 game, 9 tackles. And people had turned him into, like, the next coming of Dan Morgan or something, right? Anything you get out of him is a plus. Don't get me wrong. I just don't have a big expectation of him. So you have him. You have the freshman, what is it, Pritchard or something? Don't expect much from a freshman. Who else? I think DeMarco Ward hit the portal. I think Tamir Hickman Collins hit the portal. Who else? Who else you got left in that linebacker room outside of the guys we've already named? Zay asking about college football game. Solid question, actually, Zay. So go ahead. Tell me what y'all want to see, or name some other guys in that linebacker room. So Mighty No, you probably are correct. I mean, a lot of it's going to depend on the development of Blake and Graham. And then, of course, you're bringing in the 2 transfer guys. So a combination of those 4 is going to be really your probably backer rotation. Granted, I know you're only going to be playing about what? You're going to the 3-3, which I think one of those, Murphy's gone. Hickman's still there, so we'll see what you get in Hickman. But yeah, Murphy left. I think Murphy went to Virginia Tech. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong there. I think he went. First of all, I think he's from Virginia. I think he went back to the state of Virginia. But those 4, and again, I think one of those 3, one of the 3 linebacker spots, I think will not be a traditional backer. I think it'd be more of a rush end. That's just my thoughts. Could be wrong, but I don't think you're going to see a legit weak side, strong side, middle linebacker type setup. You're going to see 2 backers on the field and a hybrid of either end depending on the package, that third backer spot in my eyes will be a defensive end slash backer type. And there might even be some situations where it's a safety slash backer to like an extra DB. Parrish, Jaden Parrish. Right. So there's names. Now remember though, those are the same names that we criticize Randy Shannon for even recruiting. Jaden Parrish and Hickman are not only were they 3 stars, you're talking low tier 3 stars, right? That's not. I'm not knocking it. I'm just speaking facts. I'm not saying those young men can't develop and turn into great players, but those are the same players that we criticize Randy for recruiting. So, yeah, again, I think you're really looking at those 4. If you get Juice Cryer back healthy, that's a huge plus. That gives you 5. And if you get anything out of that UNC kid, who I would put in the same boat as a Parrish and a Hickman, I put him in that same boat with those guys. Frankly, you could have 6. To answer Zay's question, personally, I enjoyed it. But again, that was years after not having that game. If you want to be non-biased about that game had a lot of flaws, which is to be expected. It's an EA game. Same people that make Madden. And I personally despise Madden. Haven't played Madden in years. There are things that I love about. I mean, it's college, so it's a little bit more in depth. If you want to ask me some improvements, more customizable. Like one of the problems I had. Okay, if you want to tell me that the NIL players can't be edited for reasons, got it. But they wouldn't even let us edit the fake players. The generated players that they put on people's roster, they wouldn't even let us edit those. At least not when the game released. I don't know if they ended up patching that or not. But I couldn't edit the fake players that were on the roster. I should 100% be able to edit some random generated guy that you have filling a roster spot. 100% I should be able to edit that. No create a player. Why wasn't I able to create a player and put him on a roster? Every football game I've ever played has a create player that I can go and create a player and put them on any college. I didn't understand why I couldn't edit players and why I couldn't create a player. That has to be in next year's game. I don't understand why that's not a thing. Formation subs. I had no idea why that wasn't in this year's game. 100% I need to, depending on the formation I'm running, I shouldn't have to go in and flip through different modes or different little whatever it is on the bottom. I should be able to put my formation packages on before the game, who's playing what position and what formation I'm playing. So when I already picked that play, they're lined up. So the formation subs, they got to implement that into the game. I like the way the game felt. It felt like college football. It felt like it didn't feel as scripted, in my opinion, as Madden. So I would keep that. In my opinion, I would add one of the things I miss from the old college football game, the trophies, man, or the ESPN classics. And I know ESPN doesn't sponsor this game like they did in the past, but you got Kurt Herbstreit and guys calling it. So I don't understand why you just don't slap ESPN on it. One of the cool things about, remember 14, you had a close game that instantly went on the ESPN Classic, and you can go back and look at some of your best games you've played. Your trophy room, you can go back and look at how many times you won a Heisman or the rivalry trophies, keeping track of that stuff like you did in the past. The trophy room, bring that back. Am I missing anything? What do you guys think? Zay says you can do it now. But even you might can change the name, but like so I know like on Florida State, they got like a tight end that's like rated like 52. And you can change his name, but I can't change how he looks. I can't change I think he's like a junior. I can't make him a freshman. Like, no, I should be able to fully customize fake players, which I'm pretty sure you can't do. Yeah, and you got to get more in depth in the modes. 100% agree with Vontae. Um, your Road to Glory mode, I never even touched it. It's one of the things that made Road to Glory great was the fact that you could play the high school playoff. Never touched it because you got to bring that back. If you're gonna have Road to Glory in there, I'm all for it. Bring back high school. Bring back me creating my high school and going through the high school championship, high school playoffs in my respective state. Okay, Russell about to knock Buddy out. Y'all got me missing a good fight. Because this is going to be way better than the Tank fight. Because I expect Tank to knock Buddy out very quickly. As a matter of fact, Roach won't last 5 rounds if I had to guess. But I agree 100%, Vontae. Got to get deeper into modes. Hell, I don't necessarily play it. Bring back mascot mode. Because why I don't play it, if me and my son are playing the game, he don't know about some of these teams. But if he sees a horse on a game, like he'll play with Boise State or something just because it's a blue horse. Like just a fun mode like that. Bring back. I think definitely, man. If you're gonna be charging all this money, put the modes in the game. Wide receiver 25 is fully editable on FSU. That's good. So that's something that I guess they eventually patched in because I know at release you couldn't do that. And again, like I said, I want to see create a player, Road to Glory, even bring back some of the ESPN like classics, man. Like give me a mode where I can play classic championship like 05 USC Texas, 2013 Florida State Auburn. Give me some classic championship games to go back and play and relive those moments. Things like that. Things like that. As far as Dynasty mode, I thought for the most part Dynasty was solid. Next year, you got to include some way NIL into it. Also, when I cut a player in my Dynasty mode, I should see them in the transfer portal. That doesn't happen. When you cut a player in Dynasty, they completely get like erased from the game. And also let me customize my coaches. Like you could in 2014. I should be able to go to Bama and make Kalen DeBoer, make Mario Cristobal, let me customize coaches. Because why not? Let me be immersed in college football. None of that stuff is violating NIL or this name, image, and likeness crap. In Madden, you can go and do all of that. In Madden right now, I can go create a college player, and that college player has no legal backing to say, oh, Madden has me in the game. They just owe me money. No, because that's created. NCAA doesn't fall under any different rules than that. So I would just like more customizable stuff, and I wouldn't mind a few more modes, But for a game that hadn't been around for 10 years, that was a solid game. And a nostalgia, of course, and of course everybody was just happy to get that game. But next year, I expect bigger and better things. I was literally about to ask you about Gary Wilson. Yeah, it looked like he's doing his thing right now. Again, I'm not fully watching because I'm watching the chat and glancing, but that last round, it looked like he almost had Buddy out of there. Can't stand how you can't look at your player's stats in Dynasty without jumping. Yeah, that's a good point. In the old game, like you said, you didn't have to jump through those hoops. All I had to do was I can go to my depth chart and like I think you could press the right thumb and your stats would just pop up. Like little things like that, 100%. 100%. Ooh, good shot from. Ooh, another good punch from Gary. Another good punch. Come on, Gary he hitting this dude, and this dude is eating these shots. Ooh. They hitting each other with some bombs. Good fight right there. Good fight right there. So I hope that answers your question, Zay. Again, good game for the first time in 10 years, but let's not be, and I'm talking to EA here, let's not be complacent because EA has a habit of, so EA, this is what they know. EA knows that people are going to buy that game regardless. College football 26 is going to be just as big as 25 was. One of the reasons is because everybody's going to expect these improvements. EA knows you expect these improvements. So what do? They give you the bare minimum again with just a roster update. Have they even picked a cover athlete for this year's game? Let me look that up. Who's on the cover of College Football 26? July release date, no cover announced. Y'all have a guess for who's going to be on the cover of that game? Who's the Heisman hopeful coming into this year? I'm trying to think. Who's going to be on the cover of 26? Who's the biggest? Jeremiah Smith. If I had to guess, if I had to put money on it, Jeremiah Smith probably on the cover. He's probably the biggest name in college football, if I had to guess. Jeremiah Smith, cover athlete. I think that'd be a good bet. I think that'd be a good bet. Cam Ward, definitely not Cam Ward. He's going to the draft. This isn't the years of old where they put, no, it's going to be a current player. 100% going to be Arch Manning. I can see Arch Manning. I put my money on Jeremiah, though. I put my money on Jeremiah. Definitely not going to be Cam Ward. It's going to be a current player. Definitely going to be a current player. If they were smart, in my opinion, they'd put Dion on the. Won't be Shadur either, because again, it'd be a current player. It'd be a current player. This isn't like the years past where they had to use graduated players because of name, image, and likeness. It will be a current guy. Jeremiah, Arch, 100% could see Arch on the cover. Out of those, I can't think of bigger names in college football other than those two. I'm trying to think. I'm thinking it'll be just one on the cover this year. Well, Russell about to knock him out. Russell looking to knock him out. Hold on, y'all. I'm waiting to see if we get this knockout. Russell been beating his ass the last couple rounds. Well, looks like he might make it out of this round. Shout out to Venezuela, man. He's taking some punches. He's taking some shots, and he ain't going down. What did it do, Ice Cold? They'd be smart to put Dion on the cover. Like the ultimate, even if it's the ultimate. In my opinion, they'd be smart if they put Dion on the cover. The whole 20 that ain't gonna sell. That ain't gonna sell shit. I got Jeremiah or Arch Manning. Arch Manning's a pretty good one. One of those two guys for sure. I'm trying to think. Those are the two biggest names. Those two biggest names. What's up, sir? All right, what y'all else got before I get up out of here? Let's see if Russell can get this knockout. Wait a minute. This is one. These dudes are fighting at 140. These look like middleweights in there. Am I tripping? No, these dudes are fighting at one. There's no. These dudes look bigger than 130. These dudes are fighting at 130. No, 140. Lightweight. I think these are 140 pounders. They look bigger than that. What's good, Momo? Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it. You think Brian Kelly is fired after this year? I would say LSU has to do some big things, or yeah, he's out of there. I would agree with that. What do y'all think the spring game is going to be like? It won't be a spring game. Remember? It won't be a spring game. So I think they'll definitely do their scrimmages, but won't be a spring game. And Texas isn't having a spring game either, so Florida State ain't the only one not having a spring game. What's good, Momo? I'm interested to see what the stadium looks like when it's complete, though. I am interested to see that. Hey, Lewis, they're saying it's going to be ready, so I mean that's on the university. That's going to be terrible if we go into the season and the stadium's still under construction. That's a disaster. I know Texas isn't. I can't think of a lot of teams. I know Texas isn't, and I know we aren't. I haven't heard of any other teams. These dudes have been throwing bombs all fight. I'm surprised ain't nobody been knocked down yet. So hold on a second. Before I say, are there any wrestling fans in here? Just a quick raise of hands, because something just happened in wrestling that I actually need to go back and watch. If you know, you know. If you watch wrestling, you probably have heard the news. I just want to know if anybody like wrestling fans. But anyway, how about them Knicks? We're having a great season, but in all honesty, we can't beat the Cavs. We can't beat the Celtics. That's where our season ends. We'll make the playoffs, obviously. We're the third best team in the East. We'll make it out of the first round, and we'll lose in the second round because we can't beat the Cavs. We can't beat the Celtics. So, but shout out to the Knicks. John Cena. So Momo says he is a wrestling fan. Zay says old school, which I completely respect. Because I am a fan of the old school wrestling too. John Cena went heel. So if you don't know, Cody Rhodes is the champion. And again, if you follow wrestling, like John Cena, the ultimate baby face. If you know, I'm using wrestling terms. Again, if you watch wrestling, baby face, good guy, heel, bad guy. John Cena, the ultimate good guy for 20 years, has finally became a bad guy. Oh man, I gotta go back and watch that shit. I gotta go back and watch that. That is hilarious. All right, guys. I'm gonna get on up out of here, man. We did a good damn near 3 hours. Ooh. Love the guys love everybody that came out. We're gonna do this. I say this all the time, but now I'm finally settled for the time being, and do some more lives as we get more into the spring. Maybe talk more about some of the draft stuff. And hey, again, we closed the book on 2024, and from here on out, optimism 2025. Let's see what happens. As always, man, I'm gonna get up out of here. But as always, it's your boy POLK around 863 Seminole TV. Hit that like button, subscribe, share. Y'all have a good rest of y'all evening. We're gonna watch the rest of this fight. Now I'm gonna get on up out of here. Go Knowles. I gotta figure out what the next video will be, but it'll be coming sometime this week.